What happens when Hollywood's quietest young star finally snaps, and does it on live television? When the poised, soft-spoken Timothée Chalamet finds himself cornered by pointed questions and thinly veiled judgment from The View's Sunny Hostin, what unfolds is something no one, not even the producers, saw coming. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Prime Narrator and tap that like button. Because what you're about to witness isn't just an interview. It's a meltdown, a revelation, and a cultural moment rolled into one. Leave your thoughts in the comments as this story unfolds, because trust me, you'll have plenty to say by the end. It began like any other episode of The View. The bright stage lights gleamed across the iconic table, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Whoopi Goldberg opened with her trademark warmth, introducing the guest that morning. Timothée Chalamet, the enigmatic young actor known for his emotional depth and effortless charm. He was there to promote his new film, a somber psychological drama that had critics raving. But something felt different. Maybe it was the tension in the air. Maybe it was the way Timothy's fingers tapped anxiously against his coffee mug. Maybe it was Sunny Hostin's expression, polite, but already sharp with curiosity. "Timothée," she began, leaning forward with that lawyerly tone of hers. "You've built your career playing sensitive, introspective men. But in this new movie, you're tackling something darker, almost violent. What's behind that shift? Are you trying to change your image?" Timothée smiled, tight, controlled. "I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just following where the stories lead me." Sunny nodded, but she didn't drop it. "Well, a lot of fans online have said it feels like you're running from the image that made you famous, that soft boy thing. Do you think Hollywood typecast you? Or are you tired of playing emotional men?" The audience laughed awkwardly. Timothy's jaw clenched for a second before he chuckled. "I think people like to put others in boxes, especially when they're not sure what to make of them." The tension was subtle at first, invisible to most. But anyone who's ever been pushed past their comfort zone could see the quiet storm building behind his calm face. Sunny smiled, not unkindly, but firmly. "I just think there's an interesting conversation about masculinity here. About what young men are allowed to be in Hollywood. Do you think you represent a new kind of masculinity, or are you trying to go back to the old kind?" Whoopi shot Sunny a side glance, the kind that said, "Be careful." Timothée leaned back, inhaling slowly. "I don't represent anything," he said softly. "I just act. I tell stories." But Sunny pressed further. "It sounds like you don't want to answer that question. Is that because you're uncomfortable being seen as a symbol?" The laughter from the audience faded. Now it was silent, the kind of silence that hums. "I'm uncomfortable," Timothée said, his voice low, "when people decide who I am without asking me." It was the first time his tone shifted, not angry, but edged. The viewers at home could feel it through the screen. Joy Behar jumped in, trying to lighten the mood. "Oh, come on, Sunny, you're scaring the poor boy. He's just here to sell his movie." Laughter broke the tension for a second, but only a second. Sunny smiled. "I'm not scaring him, Joy. I'm just asking what everyone wants to know. There's been a lot of conversation about authenticity, about image. I think Timothy's career is a fascinating case study." Timothée looked at her, really looked. The boyish charm was gone. In its place, a kind of weary defiance. "A case study?" he repeated. "I'm a person, not a sociology paper." The audience gasped softly. For a brief moment, everyone froze. Whoopi lifted her hand. Okay, let's bring it back," she said with a nervous chuckle. But Sunny wasn't ready to back down. "No, I think it's important we talk about this. Actors influence culture, Timothée. You're an example to young people. Don't you think you have a responsibility to define what your image means?" He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on hers. "I think my responsibility," he said, voice trembling just slightly, "is to tell the truth in my work, not perform some version of myself to make people comfortable." The audience applauded, hesitantly at first, then stronger. But Sunny wasn't smiling now. Her brow furrowed. "No one's asking you to perform," she said. "I'm asking if you understand your impact." That's when the spark caught flame. Timothy's voice sharpened. "Every time I come on this show, I get asked about impact, about image. But no one asks me about the work. About the hours I spend living inside these characters, about what it costs. You talk about image, I talk about art. We're not speaking the same language." The camera caught Sunny's tight expression, the professional composure slipping for just a second. Joy leaned back in her chair, whispering something under her breath. The audience murmured. Whoopi looked at the floor. Sunny exhaled, carefully choosing her next words. Then help us understand. You say it costs you. What does that mean? Timothy stared down for a moment. His fingers clenched together. It means sometimes you lose pieces of yourself pretending to be what people expect. And sometimes, he said quietly, you wake up and realize you've been performing even off-screen. A long pause. No laughter. No applause. Just silence and the buzz of stage lights. Sunny opened her mouth to respond, but he wasn't finished. You want to know about masculinity? About image? Fine. I'm tired of being told that being emotional makes me weak. I'm tired of interviews that treat sensitivity like a marketing strategy. I'm tired of people asking if I'm performing softness when that's just who I am. It wasn't a shout, but it hit like one. The words hung heavy in the air. The audience's faces were frozen, half in shock, half in awe. Sunny blinked. She tried to regain footing. That's fair, she said finally. But you have to admit your fame. Timothy cut in, sharper now. My fame has nothing to do with who I am. And honestly, he looked around at the hosts, the cameras, the audience. Maybe that's the problem. And with that, the room felt like it shifted, as if the studio itself held its breath. The show continues as the tension deepens. What began as a polite exchange has turned into a test of composure, live on national television. The audience senses it, the crew feels it, and somewhere in the control room, a producer is whispering frantically into a headset. Stay with this. Don't cut. Sunny Hostin sits straighter now, her tone measured, but her eyes burning with the unmistakable intensity of someone who doesn't want to lose control of the narrative. Timothy, she says, her voice smooth. No one here is trying to define you. But when you become a public figure, your actions, your words, they matter. Whether you like it or not, you represent something to people. Timothy breathes in slowly, like he's trying to steady the trembling inside him. His fingers twist together beneath the table. And what happens, he says, his voice low, when what you represent stops being something you chose? The audience murmurs. Sunny tilts her head. Then maybe that's part of being famous, she says softly. You don't always get to control the story. Timothy looks at her, really looks, as if he's seeing through the polite words to the machinery underneath. That's exactly what I'm talking about, he says, the edge creeping back. You don't want to understand me, you want to define me. You want to package me into something the audience can digest in 6 minutes before commercial break. The crowd gasps. Joy Behar chuckles nervously, fanning herself with a cue card. Well, this is getting spicy, she mutters. Whoopi gives her a look that says not now. Sunny, visibly tightening her posture, keeps her tone professional. You're on a talk show, Timothy. We ask questions. That's what we do. And I answer them, he says. But there's a difference between curiosity and interrogation. The tension between them is electric now. Two energies colliding, neither willing to step back. The audience doesn't know whether to laugh, applaud, or stay silent. Some exchange wide-eyed glances. Others clutch their phones, recording discreetly from their seats. Whoopi tries to break the moment. Okay, everyone take a breath, she says, lifting her hands like a referee. We love passion here, but let's remember, we're all on the same team. But the calm doesn't hold. Sunny leans in again, her voice softer but sharper. You say people don't understand you. Maybe this is your chance to help them. What do you want them to see when they look at you? For a moment, Timothy doesn't answer. The silence stretches so long that the sound technician accidentally adjusts the mic levels, mistaking the quiet for technical failure. Then he speaks, quietly, but every word lands like a weight. I want them to see that I'm human, he says. Not a symbol, not a fantasy, not a meme on the internet. Just a person trying to do good work and survive the noise. That lands. Even Sunny seems to soften for a heartbeat. But just as quickly, she gathers herself. That's fair, she says, but part of the noise comes from how your generation communicates, social media, your fans, your image online. Don't you think you feed into that sometimes? Timothy laughs, but there's no humor in it. Feed into it? You mean existing? Breathing? Posting a photo becomes a headline now. Smiling wrong becomes a controversy. The audience applauds, sensing his frustration, that rare glimpse behind the carefully curated persona. Joy, ever the comedian, chimes in. Listen, Timmy, if you ever want to switch jobs, come sit at this table. You're giving speeches better than us. The audience laughs, a welcome relief from the rising tension. But Sunny doesn't let it go. I'm not attacking you, she says, her tone precise. But when you have millions of young followers looking up to you, they interpret everything. You say you're tired of being misunderstood. But don't you think clarity starts with you? Timothy's eyes flash, the heat behind them barely restrained. Clarity, he repeats. You want clarity? Fine. I'm tired. I'm tired of turning every interview into a therapy session where I have to justify being myself. I'm tired of trying to explain that vulnerability isn't a weakness, that you can be soft and still strong. The audience erupts, cheers, claps, whistles. The sound fills the studio, echoing through the rafters. Timothy sits back, chest heaving slightly, the smallest tremor in his hand as he reaches for his water. Sunny's lips part. She wants to respond, but Whoopi speaks first. Let's just take a moment, she says gently. Timothy, I think what you're saying is powerful. People forget that being seen all the time. That's pressure. That's weight. Timothy nods, grateful for the lifeline. But Sunny, always the journalist, isn't done. It is weight, she agrees, but accountability is weight too. Do you feel accountable to the people who look up to you? To the ones who see you as a voice for their generation? This time, Timothy's patience breaks. No, he snaps, his voice cracking through the air. I don't owe anyone a version of myself that isn't real. I'm not here to be anyone's voice. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to act, to live, to make mistakes. The studio goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Sunny stares at him, stunned. For once, she has no comeback. Whoopi's eyebrows lift in surprise. Joy slowly lowers her coffee mug. The audience sits frozen in that collective shock that comes only when a celebrity stops performing. Timothy exhales, long and shaky. His next words come softer, almost like confession. You know what it feels like to walk into a room and realize everyone's already decided who you are? To know you'll never convince them otherwise. No one answers. Not the hosts. Not the crowd. He looks down at the table, then back up. I spent years trying to make people comfortable with me. Smiling, saying the right things, being humble, being polite. And the more I did it, the less of me there was left. Sunny finally speaks, her tone quieter now. That sounds lonely. Timothy nods. It is. The audience exhales collectively, a sigh of empathy, of realization. The tension breaks, replaced by something else, understanding. Whoopi reaches over, resting a hand on his arm. You're allowed to be human here, she says. That's why people love you. He gives a small, tired smile. Yeah, he murmurs. But sometimes I wonder if they love the real me, or the version they made up. The cameras linger on his face, the expression raw and unguarded, something rare on daytime television. And as if the universe itself can't handle too much honesty, a stage assistant signals. 1 minute to commercial. Whoopi nods. We'll be right back, she says with her practiced poise. The studio lights dim slightly. But even as the show cuts to break, the moment lingers in the air, thick, electric, unforgettable. Timothy leans back in his chair, eyes distant, lost in thought. Sunny sits rigid, her own reflection visible in the glass mug before her. She glances at him once, then away. The crew scrambles. The audience buzzes in hushed voices. No one dares to say it aloud, but they all feel it. Something in that exchange crossed a line, and there's no going back. The cameras stop rolling, but the story has only just begun. When the cameras return, the tension hasn't faded, it's transformed. What was once a polite celebrity interview has turned into something raw and unpredictable. The audience sits restless, murmuring under their breath as the bright studio lights flood the table once again. Welcome back to The View, Whoopi says, her tone calm but heavy with unspoken weight. Before the break, we were having a passionate conversation with Timothée Chalamet about fame, identity, and what it means to be real in a world that constantly watches you. The applause cue lights up, but the audience claps hesitantly, like they're unsure whether to celebrate or brace for more. Timothy smiles faintly, the kind of smile that tries to hide exhaustion. He's holding his water glass, his fingers trembling slightly. Sunny Hostin shifts in her chair, her expression softened now, but only just. You can tell she's walking a fine line between empathy and control. I want to continue that thought, Sunny says carefully, because I think what you said before the break really struck a chord with people. About loneliness, and feeling like you're performing even when you're not. Timothy nods slowly. Yeah, he says. That's kind of the irony, isn't it? The more people watch you, the less they see you. Whoopi tilts her head. That's deep, she says softly. But Sunny leans in again, her voice steady. I hear that. But don't you think there's a part of you that still needs the audience? You say you want to be seen for who you really are, but if that were true, wouldn't you just step away? Stop doing interviews, stop feeding the machine. A ripple of reaction flows through the audience. A few nods, a few murmurs. Timothy looks up, his eyes narrowing. You think it's that simple? Sunny doesn't flinch. I think it's easier to say you hate fame when you're benefiting from it. That's it. The room shifts. The oxygen seems to thin. Whoopi's eyes widen. Sunny. But Timothy interrupts, his tone low but sharp. You think I benefit from it? You think losing privacy, losing peace, being dissected by strangers every day is a benefit? Sunny keeps her gaze firm, unwavering. You're one of the most famous young actors in the world. Fame comes with pressure, yes, but it also comes with privilege. You can't separate the two. The audience murmurs again, torn between agreement and discomfort. Timothy sits forward, the emotion in his voice cracking through his usual calm. You're right. I have privilege. I know that. But that doesn't mean I don't bleed. It doesn't mean I don't get broken by it. For a long, heavy moment, he looks straight into the camera. Not at Sunny, not at Whoopi, but at the millions watching from home. Everyone thinks fame is armor. But sometimes it's a cage. The audience falls silent. Sunny looks momentarily struck. Her lips part, eyes softening. But before she can respond, Joy cuts in with a nervous laugh. All right, I think we all need a drink after this one. The crowd laughs, some relieved. But the emotional damage is already done. Whoopi, sensing the fragility of the moment, takes a breath. You know, she says gently, I've been in this industry a long time. I've seen what fame does to people. It's not easy. But what I think Sunny's trying to say is, you still have the power to shape how you carry it. The fame, the attention. You decide how much it takes from you. Timothy listens, but his expression hardens again. That's what everyone says, he murmurs. Like it's a choice. But when the world decides they own you, it doesn't matter what you decide anymore. The audience reacts, whispers soft wows. A woman in the front row shakes her head, visibly emotional. Sunny exhales, folding her hands. I get that, she says. But you have to understand why people are fascinated by you, Timothy. You've become a symbol for vulnerability, for a different kind of masculinity. That's why people talk about you the way they do. He laughs quietly, but it's bitter this time. You mean they project onto me? They decide what I stand for, and then criticize me when I don't live up to it. Maybe that's part of being an artist, Sunny replies softly. You put something out into the world, and people interpret it. Timothy shakes his head. No, that's part of being human. But what fame does, it turns those interpretations into weapons. The words hang in the air. Whoopi glances at Joy, who's suddenly quiet. Even Sarah Haynes, usually the light-hearted balance, looks uneasy. Timothy continues, his tone more vulnerable now. I read things about myself that aren't true. I see strangers debating my worth like I'm not even a person. And then I'm expected to come here, smile, and talk about it like it's all fine. But it's not. A hush falls. Sunny leans forward, voice gentler now. Then why do it? Why sit here, knowing this could happen? He hesitates. The silence stretches for several beats. Then he says quietly, because I still believe in the work. In connection. In those moments when someone says, your film made me feel seen. That's what keeps me here. Not the fame. Not the noise. The words catch Sunny off guard. She blinks, then nods slowly, almost in respect. Whoopi smiles faintly. That's the realest answer I've heard on this show in a long time, she says. The audience applauds, this time, not out of awkwardness or surprise, but genuine emotion. Some even rise to their feet. Timothy's shoulders relax just a little, the storm inside him easing. But Sunny, always searching for truth, even when it hurts, leans in one last time. I respect that, Timothy, she says. But can I ask you something real? He nods cautiously. Do you think the version of yourself that you show to the world is still you? Or is it just who you think you have to be? It's like the air is sucked out of the room. Timothy's expression stills. His lips part slightly, his eyes flicker with something raw and uncertain. He doesn't answer right away. The silence stretches. The audience leans in. You can almost hear his heart beating in the quiet. Finally, he says, barely above a whisper, I don't know anymore. A collective gasp sweeps the audience. The honesty in his voice cuts through the polished sheen of daytime television. Sunny blinks, her composure faltering. Even Whoopi looks shaken by the candor. The camera zooms in on Timothy, his eyes glassy, his face open, unguarded. It's not a performance. It's the truth, live and unfiltered. Whoopi clears her throat gently. That, she says softly, is why we have these conversations. Timothy gives a faint, weary smile. Yeah, he murmurs. But maybe that's also why I shouldn't. The audience laughs awkwardly, a mix of admiration and heartbreak. As the segment winds down, the stage lights dim slightly, signaling the final break. But no one in the audience moves. They're transfixed, witnessing a rare moment where a celebrity dropped every layer of pretense. In the control room, the director leans into his mic. Do not cut to commercial early, he says. Stay on him, because whatever this is, anger, truth, breakdown, it's television gold. But for Timothy, sitting beneath those blinding lights, it's something else entirely. It's exposure, and it feels like standing naked in front of the world. When the show returned for its final segment, something in the studio felt irreversibly changed. The chatter from the audience had dimmed to a strange, reverent hush. Even the co-hosts seemed to have lost the practiced rhythm of television. Whoopi's usual ease was replaced by a measured calm, as if she sensed they were no longer hosting a talk show, but witnessing a confession unravel in real time. Before we wrap up, Whoopi began softly. I just want to say, what happened here today isn't typical daytime TV. It's raw. It's human. And I think everyone watching at home needed to hear it. The crowd applauded, but even that sound felt muted, hesitant, unsure of what tone to take after the storm they had just seen. Timothy sat quietly, hands clasped, his eyes fixed on the table. Sunny Hostin, composed but visibly thoughtful, cleared her throat. Timothy, I want to thank you for being so honest with us, she said carefully. Sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable, but that's when they matter the most. He looked up, his expression softer now, tired but sincere. I know you weren't trying to attack me, he said. It's just hard to keep explaining yourself to people who already think they know you. Sunny nodded. I understand. Maybe we all do, more than we admit. That simple admission broke the tension. The studio exhaled collectively. The hosts leaned back in their chairs. The air no longer crackled with conflict, but with something heavier, reflection. Whoopi smiled faintly, tapping her pen against the table. That's the price of honesty, baby. Once you open that door, there's no closing it again. The audience laughed softly, relieved. Even Timothy chuckled, the first real smile since the start of the segment. But behind that smile, something lingered. A look of awareness. The realization that what had just happened, every word, every glance, every silence, was already being clipped, shared, and dissected across the internet. Because while the View audience was still processing the moment, the world outside had already begun. Within minutes of the episode airing, clips flooded social media. One shot, the close-up of Timothy saying, I don't know anymore, was reposted thousands of times. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram lit up with reactions. Timothy just dismantled the View in the calmest way possible. Sunny Hostin really pushed him too far. That wasn't journalism, that was provocation. No, he needed that. He was finally real for once. The internet split in two. Half hailed Timothy as brave, a young actor daring to speak his truth in an industry obsessed with image. The other half accused him of fragility, of being defensive, of not understanding the price of fame. Entertainment outlets moved fast. By evening, Variety ran with the headline, Timothée Chalamet breaks down on The View. I don't know who I am anymore. Within hours, TMZ followed. Awkward tension on The View. Did Sunny Hostin push Timothy too far? Clips of Sunny's questioning were looped relentlessly, with slow-motion edits and captions reading, the moment he snapped. On Reddit, users debated whether the confrontation was authentic or strategically orchestrated to promote his new film. But to those who watched the full interview, the subtle tremor in his voice, the weary honesty in his eyes, it didn't feel staged. It felt like a man who had reached his limit under the relentless glare of fame. Later that night, a short video appeared on Timothy's Instagram story. A dark screen, no face, just a quiet voice. Thanks to everyone who reached out. I'm fine. Just needed to say what I felt. It vanished 24 hours later, but not before being screen captured by millions. Meanwhile, Sunny Hostin faced her own storm. Her mentions filled with both praise and fury. Some viewers applauded her for asking hard questions. Others accused her of emotional manipulation. On The View's official account, the comment section became a war zone. Sunny owes Timothy an apology. He's a grown man. Interviews aren't therapy sessions. She was doing her job. He just wasn't ready for it. Inside ABC's offices, producers reportedly debated whether to address the viral backlash on air. By morning, the clip had amassed over 15 million views. It was no longer just a moment. It was a cultural talking point. And yet, behind all the noise, there was silence. Timothée stayed out of the public eye for a few days. No interviews, no posts, no sightings. Paparazzi caught him walking through Soho with his hood pulled low, headphones in, avoiding eye contact. In one photo, he looked pensive, or maybe just tired. Meanwhile, talk shows and podcasts dissected every angle. Psychologists discussed the cost of celebrity identity. Critics debated whether Sunny's line of questioning was ethical. Fans turned his quote, "Fame isn't armor, it's a cage," into a viral sound on TikTok, layered over melancholic music. By the end of the week, the world had moved on to the next controversy. But something about this one lingered. People kept replaying that moment when he said, "I don't know anymore." It wasn't just about him. It resonated with anyone who'd ever felt misunderstood, trapped in expectations, or lost behind their own image. A week later, Timothée returned to the spotlight for the film's premiere. The red carpet was flooded with cameras, questions flying faster than flashes. But when one reporter asked if he regretted what happened on The View, he smiled faintly. "No," he said. "Sometimes the truth is messy, but it's still the truth." The clip went viral again. This time, not for controversy, but for clarity. Back on The View, Sunny addressed it briefly on the next episode. "People can think what they want," she said. "But what I saw that day wasn't a meltdown. It was honesty, and maybe that's what we all need more of." The audience applauded. And somewhere, watching from a quiet apartment in Manhattan, Timothée smiled. Because for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like he was performing. He felt seen. As the world debated, analyzed, and dissected him once again, one thing became clear. That day on The View wasn't a breakdown. It was a moment of truth caught on camera, a reminder that even the brightest stars can burn from the inside out. And as his words echoed across screens and hearts around the world, one question lingered. How much of ourselves do we lose in trying to be what everyone else expects us to be? So what do you think? Was Timothée justified in standing his ground? Or did Sunny cross a line in pushing him so hard? Tell us what side you're on, and if you were watching that day, what you felt in that moment. Let your thoughts be heard in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Prime Narrator for more explosive, emotional, and unforgettable Hollywood moments that remind us that fame may shine bright, but the truth always burns brighter.